All right, welcome to another episode of ScottyTalks Philly Sports. As you can see, I am welcomed by a very special guest, Johnny Ulecka from All About the Birds. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Johnny, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to finally be on with you. Johnny Ulecka from All About the Birds. Love to be able to talk some sports, not only Eagles, we'll talk some other stuff too. So I'm happy to be on it. Thank you for having me on. No
problem at all, man. I've been looking forward to this. We just have to complete the holy trinity by getting Jeff on here now. So
yeah,
once we get him on, I will have had all of you on. So I'm definitely happy to have you on here. Definitely, like the rest of the guys from All About the Birds, you're one of my favorite guys as far as analysts and podcast people. So happy to have you on the show. Everybody that's listening right now, be sure to go and give All About the Birds a follow on Twitter. It's at AAT Birds. That's on Twitter. They also have an Instagram account as well as Facebook, which is really, really popping. So you definitely want to give them a like on Facebook and subscribe to that group. You can find them on YouTube, all the mainstreaming podcast sites. So be sure to check out All About the Birds with Johnny Ulecka, Phil Stifle, and Jeff Warner. Great show. A bunch of my buddies. And, of course, be sure to like and subscribe to ScottyTalks. I appreciate everybody listening. And also want to shout out Heat Ratio Sports, my guy Tony Cotillo. Setting the standards, setting the trends, as Phil likes to say.
Sets the trends.
But that is my guy over there. Happy to be partnered with Heat Ratio Sports as well. So welcome to the show, and let's go ahead and get started, man. We're gonna do the nice bye week, mid-season roundup for the Birds right before we get ready to play the Giants this weekend. We'll also touch on that game a bit, and then we'll get started by talking about these Sixers jerseys that came out today, man. Woke up this morning to the black row home.
I thought it was Chinese writing at first.
It looked like a foreign concept.
Yeah, when I first looked, I'm like, wait a minute, what is that? Because they teased you with the picture of Iverson in the finals, and then the picture of Iverson in all black, and you couldn't see anything, and new things. Like they teased you, and then they just slapped you in the face with this. It's like it honestly, it looks like my 5-year-old daughter drew lines on the top of Philadelphia. Like I don't like it. It may grow on me.
How do you feel about the actual concept on it, the row homes? You know what I mean? Kelly Drive. How do you feel about do you like that? It eerily reminds me the jersey itself, and I thought this was good. It was a friend of mine, Kevin Dixon, that actually pointed it out to me. And he was just saying, it kind of looks like the Clippers jerseys. But then that row home type of thing also has the feel of the Denver Nuggets old school jerseys. Which, the Denver Nuggets jerseys are awesome. Those jerseys are one of the all-time greatest. But this one is, I'm on the fence on it. I don't think it's great. I don't think it is the hype, you know what I mean? But I have seen other teams City Edition jerseys, and I hate to say that they're worse. So
yeah, they're pretty bad.
There were some pretty bad ones. They got rapper inspired, hip hop inspired jerseys too, I guess. I'm not sure. I didn't look too much into those.
There's
I'm not
way
sure
too
if those
many.
are the same things or what that is.
Yeah, I don't know. I saw that. I guess Cleveland's just says the land in gray, it's just, and then Orlando has it's orange for the oranges, I guess. Down south, okay, whatever. Yeah, just my thing is, you teased about the 2000-2001. You're thinking because it's the 20th year anniversary of that. They don't give you that. They give you this. Yeah. Not saying that this won't be great and everything. I liked last year. I liked the 76ers when they kind of paid homage to this early 70s.
Yeah.
Those jerseys.
Yeah.
And I said I did break down my favorite jerseys on lastoutmedia.com, and I ranked my top 10 jerseys. Of course, the 2000-2001 Sixers are my number one. I grew up with that. I grew up with Iverson.
Same.
That's just – but the thing is, if you look in the 90s and the early 2000s, those jerseys, they're the best NBA jerseys.
Yeah.
Every single one of them. The Jazz, which they brought back last year, the Grizzlies, the Vancouver Grizzlies, that teal, and then we went to the early years of Memphis.
Yeah, those are sick. Those are like some of my favorites. And the Raptors.
The Raptors with a dinosaur, and even the old school Nuggets and everything. But if it's about like a money grab, why not do that? Because they want to try and make money, and I feel like fans, they see those old Sixers, a Joel Embiid or a Ben Simmons with that old Iverson style, Sixers. I would have went out and bought it.
Yeah,
I'm not
same.
I'm not spending money on this jersey. I do like the court though.
I do like the court
and the colors and everything. That's really cool. Maybe I get a sweatshirt of it. Maybe I like the logo 76, but
the black, the blue, and the red, it looks really good with black as the primary color. It's just that it's like you said, you build up all that steam and it's kind of just like eh. And my feeling, I guess why I say I'm on the fence is my feeling is they could look better maybe when they're on the court and playing against another team that has like a brighter color or something. Like it could look nice, but it's not. It's like you said, if it's about money, then that I don't get it. I was actually going to ask you, do you know, is there any type of trademarking or something, to where they don't own the rights to that jersey, or like what is, it's the Sixers jersey. I know that's kind of a dumb question almost, but maybe, whoever designed that jersey is just like, no, you know what I mean? Like we're not allowing that design to come out, because I don't understand why it hasn't been yet.
It's, to me, my feeling on it, that jersey is almost like the same thing with the Eagles and Kelly Green. It's almost like that. All the fans kind of clamor and be like, okay, we'd like to see that. It doesn't have to be permanent. I know some Eagles fans want the Kelly Green to be permanent, but it's almost like that. Like you're not seeing it. It's something you want to see. I want to see that jersey. I understand it was different when they brought it out in '97. It was very different because the colors and everything was off and different of what it used to be from, 96 all the way up until when they started the red, white, and blue. It was red, white, and blue the whole way. And then they changed it and added the black and the gold and the silver, and they kind of changed it up and almost made it more of a hip hop style. Yeah. Which, remember the mascot used to be hip hop and the bunny and everything. Now they have the dog, which Franklin. Okay.
It doesn't really make sense, but whatever. It's a whole other story.
That's for another story. But no, I just feel that would be something that would, I'm not saying I really don't care what they wear. If it doesn't matter what jerseys they wear, as long as they win on the court, of course, and they make the right moves. But it's something that I would go out and buy. Like I said, I'd go out and buy a jersey. I would go and spend. And I think a lot of fans would pay money, and I know the ownership likes their money. I know, they were early in the pandemic, they weren't going to pay. So they were going to let go people, not pay people. So of course for them, a lot of it's about money. Yeah. So that's what I thought. When you tease like that and you just basically say, okay, we're going to tease and I put it like this, that tease was like Ben Simmons with the jump shot teases all summer and then goes and doesn't take a shot. That's basically what it was.
That's such a good point, man. It's just a tease, literally. But I'm
that's
right
my
there
feeling on it.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it was just a you put that hype around it, and I'm wondering, if they're looking at the other teams, because I know some of the teams didn't go with like the the old school look. So I'm wondering if they're kind of just playing into that, or I don't know what the plan is. Maybe they feel that they got to earn that jersey back since that team went to the finals or something. I don't know what the case may be.
Yeah, I don't know.
Very weird. And like you said, even if I went to a game and say I didn't have the jersey, I mean, it would be very tempting to buy a jersey at the game when it looks like that. Like it would be that enticing. And like just last year, I just bought, an Allen Iverson black one that like actually fits me now. I had one when I was a kid, but obviously it doesn't fit now. But, like it's still that much in style that you want that jersey. Like I prefer that jersey over wearing, one of the newer jerseys.
Yeah.
Not only because of the design, but the feel as well. I think those Mitchell and Ness jerseys just feel like way better. They
Yeah.
feel better. But
No, I agree with you.
before we dive into the, all the way into the Birds midway point, what is your perspective on the Kelly Green? How do you feel about that?
My thing with the Kelly Green is I think the Midnight Green needs to stay because they won a Super Bowl. They were so successful in those jerseys.
Yeah.
With the whole Donovan era and Andy Reid era, they were so successful going all those NFC Championship games, going to the Super Bowl 39, and then finally winning the Super Bowl in 2017. I feel like that jersey has to stay. Maybe they go away from the black and go Kelly Green as an alternate. But again, they need that second shell rule with the helmet. Hopefully it gets past this offseason. I know they're really talking about it. But, or if they kind of do what Green Bay, had done in previous years and they wore those ugly jerseys or whatever, like the green, like the brown pants and the blue with the yellow circle and, stuff like that. If the Eagles would wear it maybe for, twice in a season.
Yeah.
But it's if they do a Kelly Green, and I'm not saying the Kelly Green that they wore in 2010. I wasn't a huge fan of that. I like the older 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, like that style with the bird on the side, the long.
Yeah.
I feel, I don't know. It's just, I know uniforms can be kind of, but what's the big deal? They have to play on the field.
I mean, those ones they brought back in 2010. I mean, those looked borderline generic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they were bland.
Yeah, they were bland as hell. Because I remember I had like a Michael Vick jersey, and that it was just, and you can still get them these days, like the Deshaun Jackson jerseys like that. And then they had like those baby blue and the yellow from like the Steagles.
yeah, those were awful. It's funny. It's funny because I always like say this story because my buddy went to that game with his dad and his one friend, and the best part of it, was because they scored 58 points or whatever. Then Kevin Curtis went off. It was this huge
Kevin
game.
Curtis,
they killed the Lions. They crushed them. And my first thing I asked him is, "How was the game?" He goes, "Oh, I didn't see it." And what do you mean you didn't see it? He goes, "Well, I passed out in the front seat of the car and I missed it." So every single time I see that jersey, I always ask him about that game, and I always give him that. Oh, so how was that game? I remember he went there, and he's always like, "Oh, shut up, you know what happened." So it's always something I always rag on him. It's just,
dude, that would be the worst feeling in the world to waste your money like that, or just waste that experience. You know what I mean?
Well, the funny thing was his dad was like trying to wake him up, and he didn't wake up, so he closed the door and locked him in the car.
Hey, you got to do what you have to do, man. Seriously.
But no, it's just I think the Kelly Green. I think the 2010 jerseys that they wore it for the 1960 championship team. So that's why it was so generic. But if they bring back the Kelly Green, it's got to be the early 90s style. Yeah. Even the late 80s style is okay. But, bring back that style as an alternate. But the other thing I'd like to see is a little bit more of, I don't know how your take is or how your feel is about this is back they used to wear green on green for a couple games. And they even wore a black with green pants. Yeah. I like when they wear the white in the green pants. I like a little bit of a different variety. Not, like I said, not that it makes that big of a deal as long as they're playing on the field. Yeah. But it's just that look, and I don't know. It just seems like they're just so bland, not doing the same thing over and over again. I think that would just be. That's just my feeling on it. With
the bottom. I mean, I definitely understand what you mean because they always go, green with the white pants, but you could go green with the black pants. You could go green with the green pants. You could go black with the green. You know what I mean? So exactly. You have options there, but I think, how I feel about Kelly Green, I think, like you said, most of I don't want to say most of our winning, but because I feel like it's just based off of my life, you know what I mean? When I was really coming on to the Eagles. But, once they switched to Midnight Green, it seems like they became a steady, at least for those, Donovan's years, the steady contender. And then, we had a couple down years and then right back into the playoffs. So, we have a lot of playoff history in the Midnight Green. And it's very consistent within, a 20-year time frame that it's been. So, I guess 20, 25 years or so, whatever the case may be. But You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the Kelly Green, I actually kind of just like it how it is. You can get the throwback jerseys. And maybe you even release the current players in the throwback jersey, if you want to go that route, and even if they don't wear them. I like seeing the Kelly Green at the games and stuff. When I go to the games, I wear Kelly Green gear sometimes as well. But I think it's more of like I hate to say it, it's more of like a fashion thing. Like, I think people that want that jersey, they just want it for themselves because it will go with like different shoes and stuff. It's hard to find midnight green attire to go with midnight green. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
for some reason, I just feel like that's very much, like like just something with the fashion and like people that want to dress up in Eagles gear, like to the T. So I don't know. Like you said, as long as they're performing well, it doesn't really bother me. But I definitely would not go permanently away from the midnight green. I think that's a bad move for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But we'll go ahead and dive into the real stuff now. Enough clothing talk. So I'm going to go ahead and start off hot. I want to hear, your raw opinions, maybe even hit some key points. Just how you're feeling after the first half of the season, your first in the NFC East. How are you feeling about the Eagles?
So it's not the way we all envisioned it starting. The big thing is some of the early games, we thought those would be, Washington to start off and Cincinnati and, even the Rams. We thought that they'd get out to that easier start and to be able to, gain a big lead. Or to be able to
2-1 start.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's just losing that 17-point lead early to Washington, basically looking unprepared against the Rams.
Yeah.
Cincinnati just, almost having it and then basically losing it. It just seems like it is the mistakes have gotten to them and it's affected them, and it's going to affect any football team. When you give the ball away as much as they have early in the season, you're going to lose games, and you're going to lose games that you shouldn't lose. And you're also going to keep teams who are bad in the games, like the Giants and like the Cowboys the last 2 weeks. By you giving the ball away, essentially let them stay in the game. Those, the interceptions and the issues against the Giants, Carson Wentz, I think we were 3 for 7 in the red zone.
Yeah.
It's stuff that can't happen. You got to be able to clean all that up. And I don't know if it's, Carson's stressing a little bit, trying to do too much. But, they're 3-4-1. Yeah, the schedule looks to be really tough. But really, watching last weekend, I'm not sure your feeling on it, but, these other teams, I know this they call it the murderer's row after, the Giants in Cleveland, which those two teams aren't they're not going to be pushovers. They're going to be tough. But even these teams in the NFC, the Arizonas and the Seattles, and they all have their flaws.
Yeah.
And the Eagles are getting healthy at the right time. And I know Phil has mentioned it plenty of times. I've seen it. He goes, all it is about health. The healthier you are going into the later part of the season, it's going to benefit you.
Yeah.
And for the Eagles, if they're healthy and finally be able to be healthy, it's going to help them going against these tougher teams. And, but it all starts with Carson.
Yeah.
If Carson can cut down on the takeaways, and I feel Miles Sanders coming back is going to help that, because if you can rely more on the run game and to be able to do that, it's going to help, because in 2017, they had those 3 running backs and they used them a lot. So I feel like that's a big thing that Doug needs to start really doing is attacking with the run game. That's my big thing on attack with it. Don't go away from it. If it's not working, you can't just go away from it right all the time.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a beautiful point. The word attack with the run game, I think that's a good way to put it, because, a lot of the times when we run the ball, it's almost just to run the ball. You know what I mean? We're just running the ball to keep the defense honest. We're not actually worried about doing anything by running the ball. You know what I mean? For some reason, I get this feeling from Doug that he just wants to, he's a quarterback. He wants to pass the ball. He wants to throw the ball down the field. And, we'll get into that later when we really break into Carson's play. But it's just part of what I've been having. What I'll say about the Eagles this first half of the season, they've been just ridiculously hard to measure, ridiculously hard to analyze, because they're so inconsistent, every single one of them. All the way up from the worst player on the team all the way up through Doug and Howie. I mean, they're all inconsistent. And, it just – I guess what worries me, which I do agree, I think we're getting healthy at the right time. I think, as unfortunate as those injuries at the beginning of the season were, they were at the beginning of the season, and that's better for us in reality.
Yeah.
Because we get guys back in the latter part of the season. What worries me, obviously the Giants and the Cowboys game, but the Cowboys game specifically with Carson, I thought that, getting Rager back and getting Goddard back, I thought that would kind of settle him down a little bit. And, maybe it was them, who knows how many snaps those guys got in practice. I mean, they were coming in, coming off of injury, off the 21-day list. So my guess is that Goddard especially didn't get many snaps with the first team. Which is, he wasn't even targeted, but maybe 2 or 3 times in that Dallas game, I think. Or maybe it might have just been once.
More of a decoy kind of, I feel like.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I guess, I was looking forward to this season because I thought I would finally get to have like a fair analysis of Carson Wentz and the Eagles because, I mean, as the franchise quarterback, he is the face of the team. So you actually get a good view of the actual Eagles roster as well. But of course, we run into this, monton of injuries, and it just makes it hard to analyze. Overall, disappointing, I would say, at 3-4-1, just because you do look at the rest of the schedule. And it's just maybe they're not unbeatable by any means. I definitely agree with you there. They have their flaws, but they are harder teams than what we played necessarily. Which that can kind of segue us into, the next point, which I was just going to kind of, talk about the NFC East, or not the NFC East, but the NFC teams, the actual conference. And, it's kind of feeding off what you said, you had the Seahawks. They've had games. They were basically getting ran out of the gym against the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills, your team. They are contenders. Don't get me wrong. They're a top AFC team, obviously. But they've had other games where they've just looked sketchy. Whether it's the 49ers. There's been a couple games, and obviously the Cardinals just lost to the Dolphins, which. It's hard to read the Dolphins right now as well.
Yeah.
Their defense looks good.
Yeah, very good.
But and then you have, the Packers who come out, they get blown out by Tampa Bay, but then you have Tampa Bay get blown out by New Orleans, but then you have New Orleans lose to Las Vegas. So what I'm trying to get at is that it's just it's a crapshoot in the NFC. And I think Phil pointed this out before the season, and I was a little more I was more leaning towards, I thought Seattle would be like a legit powerhouse. Like I thought their defense would be better with Jamal Adams and
Quentin Dunbar.
Yeah, Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner's still there in the middle. Like I thought they would be better. And while their offense is ridiculously explosive, it is scary. I'm not going to lie about that. That defense is, one of the worst in the NFL, like literally one of the worst. And, that's who I would probably call the top team in the NFC right now. But it's like, once again, it's hard to measure. You could say New Orleans after, Sunday night. But even them, they have their holes, they have their flaws. How do you feel about the NFC? Who do you think are the top teams? Who are the teams that – are there any teams that you look at and you're like, we're not going to beat them?
You could say that with the way the Eagles have played. Really, any team could just beat them. But the thing is, there's no unbeatable team. There's no super team. And Phil stated it before. And if you just look at all teams, like Seattle, their defense is not that good. They don't really have a pass rush. Yeah, they got Carlos Dunlap from Cincinnati, but that's really all they have. They don't have much on that defensive line.
Yeah,
linebacker.
The pass rush is the weakness. Yeah,
exactly. And even their corners. Quentin Dunbar hasn't looked the greatest, but also Shaquille Griffin's been hurt, and Trey Flowers isn't very good. So they have issues in the secondary, and Jamal Adams has not been good against coverage. His strength is playing down and playing almost like a linebacker, and then also kind of covering tight ends here and there. But their linebackers haven't played the best. Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright are starting to look a little old. They are older linebackers. They're not young guys, but their offense just is so powerful. DK Metcalf, Lockett, you don't know which one's going to go off. And the thing with them is their run game, they don't really have one. They have injuries. Chris Carson's there, here and there, but when you have Russell Wilson, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But
let me ask you real quick before you go to your next point. If and when we play the Seahawks, who would you have Darius Slay guard?
My feeling would be Metcalf, because you're going to put Avonte Maddox on Metcalf.
Right.
Tyler Lockett, he's shiftier, he's speedy, he's quick, elusive, but he's also the same size as like Maddox is.
Yeah.
But the other thing I want to, quickly bring up with that is they had a guy when Slay got hurt against Dallas, Michael Jacquet. They had him play, and he played pretty well. Yeah. He's I think he's 6 foot or 6'1", long arm type of corner. Not saying he's going to be a shutdown type of guy, but somebody with a little bit of size. But that's what I would do in that situation. But the biggest thing with that is you got to get home on Russell Wilson, be able to pressure him. But looking at the other teams, the Rams kind of torched the Eagles, but really, do they look that special if you really watch them the last couple of games? No.
They haven't torched anybody else. And with that Rams game, you do have to look at, what is right in front of your face. And, I mean, Tyler Higbee had 3 touchdowns. He hasn't done anything close to that the rest of the game. So those were obviously, that's 21 points in reality, which is the difference, literally.
And the turnovers that Carson had, too.
Yeah, the turnovers.
It hurt, but the other thing with the other teams is San Francisco's way too injured. The quarterbacks are hurt. All these guys are injured. Yeah, they may be able to sneak in at the last seed if they wind up getting on a roll, but you can't really trust them without Garoppolo. The other Arizona, Kyler Murray is so good, and their offense can be very dynamic with the weapons that they have with DeAndre Hopkins and, Larry Fitzgerald, still a good slot receiver. And Christian Kirk is a good deep threat. And even when their running backs are Edmonds and Drake are good. But if you take a look at their defense, they lost Chandler Jones, their best pass rusher. Their pass rush isn't what it was with Chandler Jones, of course.
Right.
They like to take chances. One game they can be on, and one game they can be off. So, with them, they're hard to read. Green Bay, they're another one. It's their issue with their defense is their run defense. Last year when we played them in Green Bay, we ran right down their throat. And they still had
like 3 or 4 touchdowns, something like that.
Exactly. And they're still having issues with their run defense. Their defense isn't that great. Just, take a look. Dalvin Cook tore them apart. And their offense is Aaron Rodgers can do wonders. So you can never count out Aaron Rodgers, but that team, it's not a scary team. You have to go up to Green Bay again, but it's just, and even looking at the Saints, Drew Brees, one game he looks like crap, and then another game he looks great, against the Bucs. And then, speaking of the Bucs, Tom Brady looks like he's 43.
Yeah,
so and you have all these weapons, and Antonio Brown's there, and it took him one game, and the team looks like crap because it's just. I'm
telling you, the thing about the Bucs and the reason that they don't really scare me at all, despite the weapons that they do have, at all is a reach. I shouldn't say at all. The reason they don't scare me as much as other teams in the NFC is because I know once we hit Tom Brady one time, it's going to throw his whole game off. That's what happened against the Saints. They were blitzing him, and they were getting in his head. And if he's getting touched, there's nothing he can do. I mean, he falls before you hit him. He'll start just falling out. So, like you said, he has not looked that great. And their defense isn't what they were hyping it up to be at the beginning of the year either. I think they just got off to a hot start because it's definitely toned down. They got a great pass rush. They got good linebackers for sure. But it's definitely calmed down a bit in the last couple weeks.
And the last team I'll bring up, just because they have a winning record, is, the Chicago Bears. Everyone likes to bring up the Nick Foles and Carson Wentz. They like to compare the two. And I know, people like to give Foles excuses that his offensive line is not very good. He doesn't have the weapons, which if you really look at it, okay, yeah, his offensive line may be hurt. So is Carson. So you can't really – but if you look at the weapons that Allen Robinson's a Pro Bowl caliber wide receiver. Jimmy Graham's still a decent tight end.
Yeah.
They have a young receiver in Darnell Mooney who's a speed guy who's been playing pretty well. They have Anthony Miller.
Yeah.
David Montgomery's a good running back. Yeah, they lost Tariq Cohen, but they have weapons on that team.
Yeah, Cordell Patterson.
Nick Foles just isn't that good. Yeah, he can play stretches where he's on fire. We've seen it. And there's stretches where he plays like
crap,
like an average quarterback, like a backup quarterback. So, and even people in Chicago are asking for Trubisky. Too bad Trubisky's injured.
Right.
So, but it's nobody in the NFC really scares me because no one's all put together. Everyone has their issues. So, time will tell. If the Eagles are healthy and they're hot going into the playoffs, you never know. Look at teams like the Giants. Look at teams like the Steelers who've went in when they were last wild card seeds, and wind up winning the Super Bowl.
Right.
So I'm not saying the Eagles are going to go and do that, but if they're healthy at the right time, you just never know. You don't, especially in the year 2020 where anything can happen. Really, you don't know.
Yeah. What I would say, about the NFC and just these games moving forward, we'll definitely dive into them later. Just team. I guess what I would say is none of these teams are unbeatable. There's matchups and there's history as to why I would pick the Eagles to lose to them. Like the Seahawks and the Saints, we historically in recent years have not played well against them. We lose like every time. But whereas the Packers, our history recently has been fairly well. We've played them pretty well. So, just as far as that, the way I'll put it is, if Carson Wentz literally in that first half of the season just doesn't play like the worst quarterback, then we would have a winning record right now, even with the injuries. Like what I'm trying to say is if he doesn't turn the ball over as much, we would have a better record right now. So my thought process is if he can just turn it up a notch, we'll be in good shape with everybody coming back healthy. And the last thing you want to see is, this team that has been deemed, in the weakest conference, they win their or not the conference division, the weakest division in the NFC East. Everybody's making fun of us right now. We lead with a 3-4-1 record. The last thing these teams want to see is an Eagles team getting healthy. Say they do win. So let's say they do win, Arizona, Washington, and Dallas, and maybe even New Orleans. Let's say they just reel off 4 in a row at the end of the season. That's the last team you want to play going into the playoffs is a confident team that has beat contenders. So I think, the way I'll put it is the Eagles control their own destiny at this point. And as crazy as that sounds at 3-4-1, they have the opportunity to beat teams that would be in front of them. So they do have opportunity here. I'm not saying they're going to go up and, get to the third playoff seed. I doubt that. But, I definitely think they have a chance, to definitely get some chemistry going this second half of the season. You're going to see guys that we called out at the beginning of the season that we were looking forward to, like Rager, like Goddard, and we'll get the offensive line healthier. It's going to help our team. And I think a good point that you brought up was, Miles Sanders, the running game. And how much that feeds into what the Eagles, where their success will come from is running the football. I mean, I feel like it's as plain as day. And it just like hit me hardcore last week when I was thinking about it and, just thinking about Carson and what could help him. And I think it's actually pretty simple, relying on the run first. I think Carson plays better when we are, attached to the run game. We're committed. And I think Doug, he shies away from it very quickly. Whereas you look at a team like the Seahawks, like you pointed out their run game, their running backs have been injured. Chris Carson's out. Carlos Hyde's been out. They've been using a guy named DJ Dallas and Travis Homer. And they're still running the ball consistently throughout the game. Even from behind, they're still running the football. And, I think that just all that does, we have been playing from behind a lot. But when you stick to the run, it keeps the defense honest. They don't know what to expect. When you have Carson dropping back 45 to 50 times a game, it's not a good formula. I mean, the more he's throwing the ball, the more chance he has to get sacked, to fumble, to throw an interception. I guess what I'm praying is that, Miles Sanders is healthy. And it's been a mystery this entire season, since he came back from the initial injury and then went back on the injury, on the injury report. Yeah. So, even when he was playing, he wasn't getting 20 carries.
And that wasn't getting anywhere close. Like he wasn't getting close to that. So they weren't utilizing him. And I think that'll help Carson too. If you get a running game going and you get, even if it's, I think they need to give Boston Scott like between 5 to 10 touches. Not saying carries, but in the receiving game, get him going a little bit. Don't give him 3 or 4 touches. It does nothing because he may be a guy that needs to, get it rolling a little bit.
Get some juice.
And Corey Clement really. He hasn't really showed me much of anything, but to be able to get the running game going is going to help Carson because if you can use the play action and be able to go deep, because it seems like Carson's going deep a lot this year than he has in previous years. Yeah, he has Hightower, and then you have Rager back. You had Deshaun for a game and a half or whatever. Right. But, you have these guys, but the health standpoint of the running game is going to help and be impactful when you also get a guy like Isaac Seumalo, who they just activated off the 21-day. Yeah. And a lot of people trashed him his first couple of years in the league because he didn't play that great. But the last couple of seasons, he's been one of their best offensive linemen.
Yeah.
And he can do a number of different things. He can play a whole bunch of different roles. And the thing with that is, if you can get some type of continuity on that offensive line, I feel like Carson's going to be more comfortable. But my other biggest question, which I'll pose to you real quick here, is Seumalo comes back. You have Kelsey at center. Herbig at right guard, or is Jason Peters at right guard? Because what do you do at Mailata? I think Mailata needs to play left tackle.
Yeah. So if you're asking me the question, yes. I know it won't happen. But yes, I would move Jason Peters right over to right guard, and Mailata. Why stunt his growth and development this year when this is a year where we get to groom young players? We can win the division with young players playing. So this is the year to let these guys play and get their feel. Even if you had this, I hate to say it, even if you had to sit Jason Peters, I mean, I know they won't do it. I know they won't, but it's something that I personally would consider. I think a lot of the time the Eagles look at the optics too much. It doesn't matter what the outside says. It doesn't matter what your fans say.
Yeah.
You need to do what's right for the team, and I just think that they don't do that. I think they pay way too much respect to guys that put the time in. And, you know, to an extent you can do that some seasons, but not this season. I mean, we didn't even – what happened? We didn't even want to bring Jason Peters back. We left it go all the way up until the beginning of the season when we finally brought him back. Yeah. And now he's a staple at left tackle after Mailata's played really well. I don't understand that. Why we're so bought in back into Jason Peters now when we were just ready to give him up. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I would love to see more of Mailata, And then that lets us know more about what we can do with Dillard.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is, Ertz can come off of IR week 11, which is in a couple weeks. Getting him back, hopefully his mind is cleared and he plays a little bit more of the way that we're used to seeing him play. But the other question is Alshon. Where does he fit? My big thing with it, I feel like he does play. It's going to be an upgrade because he's that possession guy.
Yeah.
He's not going to be going deep. He's just a possession type of receiver. But by no means does that mean he needs to play over Fulgham, who showed you that he can do multitude of things at that receiver position. What he's been doing against the teams that he's been playing, good defenses. He hasn't been playing bad defenses. He's been playing very good teams.
Yeah.
So he definitely needs to play. And, of course, you have Rager and Greg Ward. Alshon, does it cut into a little bit of what Hightower, which, okay. Hightower struggled with tracking the ball a little bit. He's still a young guy, a rookie. So, do you use him on deep routes here and there? Okay. But I feel Alshon should get a little bit of play. But, who knows? He may get hurt again mysteriously in practice. He may trip over his feet. I don't know.
My thoughts, I definitely agree with you. And if I see him in getting snaps over Travis Fulgham, I'm going to go through the roof. I think Travis Fulgham should be on the field at all times. I think he should be in every play. I mean, he's obviously been our best receiver. And then obviously you don't want Rager's snaps being impacted either. That's your first-round pick. John Hightower, I guess, will be the guy that's expendable at that point. But even then, like you said, he is a young guy. So I think that could end up situational. But the only thing I feel about it becoming situational is that, if Hightower's in, does that mean they take Fulgham out and put Jeffrey over there? Do you know what I mean? Which I hate that because that's another one of those things where it's just optics. They don't want the media to make fun of Alshon not getting snaps. They don't want Alshon to get mad in the locker room, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And I think we saw them, because they were pushing it all the way to the trade deadline trying to get rid of him. And obviously him not coming back from the injury screwed that all up. But they did. Yeah. They were avidly shopping him publicly. And I think they were thinking along the same lines, like, man, we do not want to stunt the growth of our young receivers with this guy. But if you have him, he is good enough that he should play. Yeah. So it's a sticky situation. But, ultimately I just don't want him affecting Fulgham or Jalen Rager.
No,
and
go ahead. You need the young guys because that's going to be your backbone going into the next few seasons. You're going to have 2021 is going to be a different roster. You're going to have to make some tough decisions. You're going to have, there's going to be a lot of decisions made that veterans aren't going to be brought back. So you need to see what you have in these young guys because it's crucial. It's just you need to know what you have to move forward because the other teams in the division, if they're not playing well, they're getting high draft picks. So they're adding young talent. And the Giants have been high draft pick numerous times. Their defense looks pretty good. They're building a team like Washington, with Chase Young and, Antonio Gibson, some young players, Terry McLaurin. They have some young guys too. Dallas is playing like hot trash this year. So right now they're at number 3 pick. So if they re-sign Dak, and he comes back healthy, and you already have that, those 3 receivers, and you still have Zeke, and they add, plus they get some guys back healthy, they're still going to be towards the top of that division. So you need to know what you have in these young guys because these are your guys that's going to take that next step. That's my feeling on it. You need these young guys to take the next step. Yeah. So you need to know what you have.
And that's, and shout out to everybody that, has been kind of even, the last couple years after the Super Bowl have, kind of just been going in on Howie and these draft picks because this is, it doesn't look good. I mean, even if the guys from this past year's draft, say Jalen Reagor is a stud, which I think he will be, honestly. You get Fulgham, but there are still major, major holes. And, we're going to have to, like you said, make some tough decisions. Obviously, Deshaun, Alshon, they're out of here. You hope that Corey Clement isn't brought back. You bring in a young running back to be that third running back. Hopefully we would hold on to Boston, I would think. But
the other thing I could see happening too is, a guy like Malik Jackson may be cut just because of the cap hit, because you have, Hargrave and Fletcher Cox. And I feel like my feeling right now as it stands, I don't think Derek Barnett's worth $10 million next year, because you can either cut him or trade him and save $10 million, and then they can restructure Brandon Graham, who's playing at an elite level, and you can restructure him and cut his salary off a little bit. Plus, the other thing to watch out for is the whole Carson Wentz. You can restructure his contract and save $18 million. Yeah. So you do that, you're tied to him for another couple of seasons after that. So it's definitely something, because the whole Jalen Hurts thing. Yeah. So there's a lot of questions that are going to have to be answered. There's a lot of tough decisions that are going to have to be made. Zach Ertz is a big decision as well. So there's a lot to be made and the draft is going to be crucial this year to see what you can do, and the development in the past couple draft classes to see what you have, because you're not going to be able to find these practice squad gems all the time. Yeah. You these undrafted practice squad guys to be able to come in and do some. Andy Reid had some, great undrafted free agent finds that he had that made big contributions to his teams. Yes, you can get a few of those to make contributions, but the thing is, you need your draft picks to be able to not say hit on every one, but you need to have, in a couple of drafts, you need to have a handful of guys that you can depend on to be able to go that next step.
You know what? And it's just funny. I was thinking about this while you were talking, and it actually it came to me that, our last three basically first-round picks. Now, I know I'm hopping back to 2018 with Goddard. I know he wasn't a first-round pick, but I believe he was our first pick in the draft. All three of these guys have missed significant time this season. Yeah. Literally. Rager, Dillard has missed the entire season, and then obviously Goddard's been on IR as well. So just thinking back, and then even Miles Sanders, he hasn't played much this season. No. I guess before we move on to Carson Wentz, I just want to ask you this simple question. Are you worried at all about Miles Sanders' durability, and if he is that guy that they said he was at the beginning of the season?
So I've watched Miles Sanders since he was at Penn State. I love Penn State football. So
Penn State guy.
Big Penn State fan. So, watching him, and what worries me is a lot of the soft tissue injuries we're seeing. Yeah. You had last year, he had the hamstring to start the season and everything, so it wasn't until he came on after Howard got hurt. Then he had that ankle injury that he got. And then this year he didn't play because he had an injury. And then he gets hurt with
the hamstring again.
Yeah, a soft tissue injury. And then he got the knee, and then he's been out, a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
My thing is, he's such a great talent, but you have to be able to be on the field, especially if you want to get a second contract, which unfortunately, if you had to ask me now, no. I don't think he's getting a big deal from the Eagles.
Yeah.
If you look, 2012 is the last year a Super Bowl winner has had a franchise running back, a high-paid, high-priced running back. So I don't think that's something the Eagles are going to do. But the thing is, you still have a couple more years. He needs to stay on the field and be healthy, because what you have, if he's not healthy and you don't have a plan B, which they don't have, Boston Scott's, he's serviceable, but he's a number 3 running back. He's a guy out of the backfield that, catches here, running here and there. He's not a number 2 back. You don't have that. And I know they wanted to sign Carlos Hyde. They didn't. But they need that type of Jordan Howard, Carlos Hyde, that kind of running back behind him. So that's something next year they need to find, because if you have another injury to Miles Sanders and you don't have someone, back there that can tote the rock and to be able to give you carries and be able to make your run game going and to be able to sustain that so Doug can keep running the ball to help Carson and help the offense, I think that if he keeps getting hurt, you're not gonna. It's going to be another stain on Harry Roseman's draft record if he can't stay healthy. As talented as he is, he needs to be able to stay healthy.
Because, that was a question I posed after last season, which you just mentioned, when it's contract time, do we give money to Miles Sanders? I don't think it's smart to do. I hate to say it, even if he wasn't injured as much. I just don't think it's good to give it to running backs. They're valuable, but they're not as valuable as a big contract because like we see right now, he's injured. So you're getting hit so often, it's just not you don't get the full value out of that contract. I guess one way to look at it, hopefully I would imagine we would bring in a younger back at this point after this season, obviously. But you do have a guy like Jordan Howard who, isn't getting his reps. Even now with the injuries, still really isn't getting the full reps down there in Miami. And he's likely not going to be there after this season. He's been pretty much like the fourth or fifth option on the depth chart. That's a nice guy you could bring in on a 1 year deal, prove
he's still only 26. He's only 26 years old. He's not over the hill. He's not over 30 years old.
I liked what I saw from him last year. I know everybody, there's like a side you pick on it apparently, but I like Jordan Howard, and I think he's a perfect complement to Miles Sanders as well as Boston Scott. I think that trio is – a trio, you see a lot of the Super Bowl winners. They have, a solid 2 or 3 running backs that just split time and they don't get beat up as much because they split time. So – I definitely agree with you. I think that's another good point, towards giving Boston Scott, at least 5 to 10 touches a game, just to keep Miles fresh. And I don't know. I on the same scale, and, this will kind of dive right in. We're going to talk about Carson Wentz now and, what can he do to fix whatever's going on. And we'll dive into that. But, just designing more easy one-read options for Carson Wentz, you motion, and I see it from other teams. That's why it pisses me off. You watch San Francisco against us. You watch the Rams, and they'll split their running back out wide. They'll put him in motion, and then they just send him over to the other side, and you just you literally throw the ball right to him. It's almost like a run. It's basically a run. Yeah. Those type of plays, play action, usually with play action plays, you only have, 1 to 3 reads. You're not having to go through a ton of reads on play action plays. I think it's when we give Carson Wentz too many options. I think his mind, especially when it's not his starting guys in there, you don't have the right offensive line in front of him. I think he starts forcing things and, just taking shots to get points. I think he gets point hungry. And, I don't know. I think we got to find ways to make it easier for him. I think it is just way too – it's either way too simplified or it's way too complicated. I don't know which one it is because the offense is so bland.
Yeah.
But it seems like we don't – when teams play us, they hit us with the quick passing game. But we don't have a quick passing game for some reason. Like on 3rd and 3, we don't have a go-to passing, a slant in, and maybe, it's been different since we've had Travis Fulgham. I will say that because he can be that guy that makes those plays on 3rd downs, and he has been actually. But, I don't know. It's the most frustrating thing in like short yardage when we just can't score, down in the red zone when we just can't score. It just looks like incompetence. You see Curtis Samuel in Carolina, the way they use him. They've even given him carries out of the backfield with CMC out. Jalen Reagor can do similar things. He's a freak athlete. He's good in space. Get creative. Even with the Jalen Hurts stuff, it's like at first I was like, okay, this, it's exciting when he breaks off a run, but when you run into the back of the offensive line so many times with that same read option play – that you don't even install a pass option to, I don't know what you expect from a defense. That's such an easy play to read. I don't get it.
My other thing is, what about – because we've seen it done against us – is a player like Quez Watkins who has speed why not have him run and give him, a handoff, let him go up. They used to do that with Deshaun Jackson early when he first started, the speed. Or even have Jalen Hurts out wide, have him motion in, and you can either hand it off to him running or fake it and see if the defense moves. Different things. I feel like their offense is like, it's almost like you go into an ice cream shop and there's all these different flavors and you're like, oh man, I'm going to try all these. And you're like, okay, I'll go with vanilla. It's just, it baffles me to watch it. And you watch teams like, even a team like San Francisco, who on Thursday, they lost, but they run so many different things with all these players who are out, and these different type of offense with a backup quarterback and everything. And I just feel like I don't know if it's Doug. I just don't know if it's Doug play calling or if it's the type of scheme. I don't know what it is, because it just looks so different than if you even look at 2017 or even when Foles came, like 2018 when Foles came after the injuries and everything like that. I don't know if they're not tailoring it to Carson or they're just I don't know what they're doing.
And that's a good point. That's what really bothers me about the offense is that, everybody says when Nick Foles comes in, it runs better. They run a different offense. Yeah. They run the RPOs consistently. Carson Wentz would thrive with RPOs. He would thrive. He's built better for them than Nick in reality. He can move.
Exactly.
So I don't understand why it's not a thing, but I guess that comes when you don't run the football. And, that's why, before the season, I know I had people tell me that, Boston Scott and Clement were good enough to back up Miles. No. Literally, my question to everybody before the season was, if Miles Sanders goes down, are we content with Boston Scott being our feature back? He can do it for a game. Can he do it for multiple games? Do you trust him that much? And, at the end of the day, it's no. You trust Boston Scott. You don't trust him that much. You trust him splitting time with another back. Yeah. And, Doug, I don't get it, because you see that the offense is successfully run with a bigger back sometimes. Like, it does numbers for us. We play really good when we have that option. And you've seen the struggles short yardage this year. So that's what got me into thinking about the run game and how LeGarrette Blount and Jay Ajayi, those were bruising backs. I mean, they put a hurting on the defense. Now, I know Miles is more of the, finesse, elusive type of running back, a receiving back as well. We're just missing that power. When Blount would run through a defense for 20 yards, that defense is beat up. I mean, they don't want to tackle him again. Even a guy like Ryan Matthews, when they had him in 2016,
he was a bruising back, and unfortunately a neck injury ended his NFL career. But he was that type of back. He's gonna hit the hole, and he was a bigger guy. Yeah. And I'm not saying Miles Sanders isn't big or anything, but when it's not his style, and when he's not in there, you have a 5'6" or 5'7". He's 200 pounds, but still he's
they're running into big. The middle of the defense.
And even like Corey Clement, he's really the fourth running back, because Jason Huntley seems to be getting more. And Jason Huntley's built the same as Boston Scott, a smaller 5'7", 5'8", 195-pound back. It just doesn't.
Yeah, and if anything, he's less stocky than Boston Scott. You know what I mean? So
exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know, what they have to do, but to me, it just. It's baffling the way they run it, and for Carson, because the last 3 years Carson's only had 7 interceptions each of those last 3 seasons. Okay, and this year he has 12. So okay, but the way I look at it is, yes, he struggled. He needs to play better. He needs to stop trying to play hero ball and just playing with reckless abandon, basically throwing the ball up, thinking you get it's like the Brett Favre. And I know today Brett Favre said something about how they shouldn't have gotten rid of Foles and everything, which Brett Favre has said a lot of stupid things over the last couple of weeks, and I won't get into that. But, it just other star quarterbacks have struggled.
Ask you a question about that, though?
Yeah.
Why is that even a question to Brett Favre on First Take? You know what I mean? Why is that even a topic for Brett Favre coming on the show?
Yeah, why don't they just talk about his Wrangler jean commercials and his copper fit arm sleeves that he wears, whatever, or him sending nice pictures to reporters and stuff, whatever. But it's for that. For some reason, the media loves to, crap on Carson.
Yeah,
I don't. Every little shot they want to take and everything they want. Or Dan Orlovsky's been very trying to defend him as much as he can, because Max Kellerman seems to love to throw shade every time that he can. But other star quarterbacks have struggled. I wrote for all AETBirds.com, about other quarterbacks who've had 8-game stretches to start the season, and not early in their career, towards the middle of their career. Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, Drew Brees, Dan Marino, John Elway. They've struggled. They've had turnover issues, and it's just that. Just because you have a bad season doesn't mean, you're done. Yes, he's regressed. Yes, he has to try to figure it out, whether it's mechanics, whether it's, what it is, he needs to figure it out. Absolutely. And that's on the coaching staff, and that's on Carson. They need to figure it out. They need to reel him in. They need to cut back on the turnovers, no doubt. But when you look at, and everyone likes to say, Carson, he hasn't won a playoff game. He's going to be turning 28. He hasn't won a playoff game. Well, Peyton Manning won his first playoff game at age 27. Other quarterbacks, Drew Brees, 27. Jim Kelly was 28. Tony Romo was 29. All these other quarterbacks, Roger Staubach, 29, Bart Starr, 27. All these Hall of Fame quarterbacks, they haven't, Eli Manning was 26. Phillip Rivers was 26. Phil Simms was 29. So just because you didn't go your first, which he would have been in the playoffs in 2017 if he didn't get hurt in the Rams game.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have been talking about him getting in the playoffs or probably winning a playoff game, because I'm sure he probably would have won a game. The level he was playing and how he was playing. But the other people, what people don't say, don't think about, is Nick Foles would have never done what he did in 2017 if it wasn't for Carson's performance, getting them to 11-2, setting them up, to secure home field advantage and to be able to play at home. I think a lot of people don't think about that, and they just think, he's injury prone. He can't stay healthy. He hasn't made the playoffs. He couldn't stay healthy in the playoff game. There's a lot of factors that people like to bring up, and when he's struggling, it almost like everyone comes out and they're salivating to throw the shade at him and say, Nick Foles, we shouldn't have gotten rid of Nick Foles. And they like to bring all that, who, of course, got benched by a 6th-round pick in Gardner Minshew last year. And people are calling for his head for Trubisky again, who was a flame out, that they want him back because he's not playing well. So, yes, Carson has to play better. And I know you agree with me. He needs to play better. But yes, he's regressed. But, I don't know your take on him as as your franchise quarterback.
Yeah. So, first of all, I do want to just let everybody go read that article about the the other relatable quarterbacks in their fifth or couple seasons in. Great article on allaboutthebirds.com. I just want to point that out first. Very interesting article, and it really puts it all into perspective. But to your point, I think it's just today's NFL, man. I think everything is so misconstrued. One, by the media. The media is just ridiculous. Everybody's on top of everything at all times. And then the other thing, guys like Patrick Mahomes and even Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson doesn't have a playoff win yet, and he hasn't been playing that great this season. Obviously, doesn't have the numbers that Carson has as far as turnovers, but he's slowed down a little bit this season. What people need to realize is that not everybody is, Russell Wilson. Not everybody is Patrick Mahomes, who wins in their first, 2 or 3 seasons. That doesn't happen very often. Carson Wentz doing that in his second season in 2017 was an anomaly. That's ridiculous for him to have been playing at that level. And for us to expect it now, you know what I mean, though? It's an expectation, because everybody bases his seasons going forward against that season, where, let's be real, that was the perfect team that could have ever been put together that season. And it just had the perfect chemistry. And before I move on from that point, I do want to say that Carson put confidence in these guys on that team that they didn't have before.
Yeah.
They were going into games feeling that they were going to win those games because they had Carson Wentz at quarterback. And, coming in, you get a guy like that at the second pick. It was our first round pick of a quarterback since, like Donovan McNabb. I'm not sure where Call got drafted, so I may be
second round.
Okay, I was going to say I may be mistaken there. But, the excitement, the confidence. I mean, Alshon Jeffrey came to our team because of Carson Wentz at quarterback. I know everybody talks about the reports, the anonymous report. Alshon Jeffrey wouldn't even be on this team if he didn't want to play with Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
Literally, he said it. And he guaranteed a Super Bowl when he came to the team. You know what I mean? Carson Wentz put that type of confidence in those guys like Nelson Aguilar. And obviously Torrey Smith is a veteran. I won't, accredit him. But, I mean, Zach Ertz was having one of his best seasons. I mean, Carson built that team up for Nick Foles. So I just don't want people to forget that. And, but, I think it gets misconstrued by, Patrick Mahomes winning MVP in his first season starting and then winning Super Bowl the second season he starts. Patrick Mahomes is a Hall of Famer. It's ridiculous the things that he does. But let's not forget who's his coach, and let's not forget the team around him as well. So with Carson, it's just so funny to me because, all last season they're sitting there talking because we had the slow start. And, and before I hop to this point, I will just point out, Carson Wentz had good seasons in 2018 and last season. So this whole narrative that he hasn't played the same or that he hasn't played up to par since 2000, that's not true. 21 touchdowns and 7 interceptions is a good ratio. Yeah. Now, yes, he did have some injuries that weren't related to one another. He got his back broken, then he got, a concussion. 2 uncontrollable things, let's be honest. And, so you get to last season and Carson Wentz rails off those 4 wins in a row at the end of the season, puts up incredible numbers, the 20 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, under 500 yards from a wide receiver. He had 4,000 passing yards or 3. Yeah, it was 4,000. He was the first 4,000 passing yard quarterback in Eagles history. And, he doesn't get any credit. Where did it go? Dan Orlovsky was the only person giving credit to Carson Wentz. They weren't even talking about it on First Take, or if they did, then Max Kellerman says it's the Giants, it's the Washington, it's the Cowboys. The Cowboys. Why doesn't Dak Prescott get the same criticism? I don't understand it.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting coming out of this season where Dak, has a season-ending injury. The type of energy that is put towards Dak Prescott. And, by all means, I'm not making fun of Dak Prescott. It's an injury. It happens. But it'll be interesting to see the narrative on him going forward if he gets banged up again next season just for a couple games. Because Carson Wentz has only missed 8 career games that he's supposed to start. You know what I mean? So it's all completely unfair. And it just sucks this season because now they finally have credible information that they can compare. And one last point, and I'll let you speak on it again. Back in the day, with guys like Ben, Drew Brees, well, maybe not Drew Brees because the Chargers moved on from him after the shoulder. Yeah. So maybe not with him, but, a couple of these guys, they got chances. And, these people that are calling for Jalen Hurts to come in the game, I don't know what you have been watching to where you think that Jalen Hurts will come in and perform better with this team. It will be a train wreck. And my opinion on that is once you go that route, you can't go back to Carson. You have to trade him at that point. You ruined him. He's obviously a guy that is very mentally dependent. Where he's at mentally depends how he plays. So you need him to be right and confident. And, benching him to a second-round pick that probably shouldn't even have been drafted in the second round is not a good move as an organization. And thank God, Howie and Doug haven't done that yet. But it's ridiculous for him calling him to get benched on really his first bad start to a season.
Yeah. And the one thing that I think, I'm not saying it's an excuse, but it's something to really look at is 2016, his rookie year, that offseason was his only full offseason that he wasn't recovering from an injury and he wasn't going through a pandemic.
Yeah.
So 2017, he gets hurt, the knee injury. He has to rehab and everything going into 2018. He misses the first couple games, and then he gets the back injury, and then it's that, and then he gets the concussion, but then we get the COVID and everything like that. So it's not a full off season and everything. So the last full off season that he's had, totally healthy and everything going into it, you can say that the 2018 to 2019, he was fully healthy and everything with that. Okay. But really it's 2016 into 2017. And, that's something that I think about too. But I think the confidence thing is a big thing. Like they finally get away from the Nick Foles and everything, but then they go ahead and they draft a quarterback in the second round.
It made me sick. Man. It made me sick, and it makes me even sicker to this day. I would say, And I think Jalen Hurts is a great dude. I'm not trying to pick on him or anything, but just not the pick you make there.
No, not at all. Not with what was on the board. Not with what your team needs are and everything. That was not the pick. No, yeah. I absolutely agree with you there.
Yeah. And, I guess what we can kind of end the Wentz segment on, like I said earlier, this was my season coming in to where I was looking forward to, finally cutting the excuses out of Carson Wentz and, trying to make excuses. In reality, we should have never had to make excuses in the past seasons other than injuries, obviously. But his stats weren't, his stats were in the top of the league in reality. So it wasn't really that. I was just looking forward to him getting a full season, hopefully getting a playoff win, and, just putting together, that season without excuses. We don't have to say, he had injuries around him. Against the Ravens, was it the Ravens game where there was only 2 starters left?
I think so.
It was just him and Kelsey left. That's an excuse. It's a reasonable, viable excuse. I mean,
others use it.
Yeah, exactly. If you look at the San Fran, they're getting the excuses of the world. I remember they were putting up the graphic against us.
Yeah.
We have more injuries than San Fran. Let's be honest. Maybe not now.
Yeah, because we're getting a little healthier. But still, at that point, they didn't mention at all.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just
the narrative, man. And, that's what I was looking forward to this season. But, here we are again, and he has a list of excuses. I mean, they're viable excuses. We come into the season. I don't know how you felt about the wide receiver position coming into the season, but if we did not have Travis Fulgham right now, if we didn't find that gem, we would be completely screwed up until Jalen Reagor got back.
Oh, you don't think J.J. Arcega-Whiteside would give you – But no, it's coming into the season, the wide receiver position, I guess I could say I was a little optimistic.
Yeah, me too. That's a good way to put it.
You had Alshon coming back, whether or not when he was going to play. Deshaun hopefully was healthy. You had Goodwin and a speed guy, and then you had the young guys, and then Goodwin winds up opting out, and then you still have some of the young guys. It's okay, well, watching the Redskins, or not Redskins, there I go saying it, the football team against them, seeing Reagor go deep, and then even the tight ends, because I kind of bunch those in with the receivers.
Yeah,
but seeing what you had, and okay, but then you start seeing all these injuries, and you're going into the practice squad and getting these guys, and when they initially claimed Fulgham, I remember him from Old Dominion when he was in college and stuff, and watching him a little bit and seeing big body type of guy for the Lions, and for him against the Lions was a numbers game. Lions already had 3 viable veteran receivers, plus they just drafted another guy higher than what he was drafted at, so. It was the numbers game there. Then he went to Green Bay.
Kenny Golladay is a similar. I don't want to compare them, but they are a similar play style. Just that big body.
And they had Marvin Jones and they had Danny Amendola, and then they drafted another guy. So The thing with that is him coming in, you see it, okay, but then they cut him and they put him back on the practice squad, and you see him make a play. To me, I'm not saying, he's going to be a superstar. I said, wow, that was a nice play. Okay. And then the next week he goes off. So it's just something in him. Yeah, you get those fines, but right now where the receiver position is now, I feel comfortable because I feel like Fulgham's an emerging talent. And I feel like Rager's a guy that can feed off of the big body receiver and having a speed guy.
Yeah.
And then, you have Greg Ward, who's ever reliable, 4 yards per catch type of guy. But no, I do feel comfortable to be able to grow with these guys.
Yeah.
I still think in the offseason you need to add another guy, but right now the way they're playing and the way that I feel Carson can finally he has chemistry with Fulgham. You could see it.
Yeah.
And I feel like him and Ward have their bond there, and I feel like him and Rager are starting to get acclimated. But that's what you need. Carson needs those young guys to build around. Give him these young receivers to be able to go with for the future.
Yeah.
And to have that stable of guys that you're not question mark every single season. What are you going to get out of these guys?
And that's a good point. Even on the stance, where you have, put it this way, and I'm not saying that Deshaun Jackson and Carson have issues or anything like that. Deshaun's a big, ego guy. He's very confident, I will say. Alshon obviously had his rumors and stuff around that. So, you're kind of bringing in this new wave of wide receiver to where Carson can be the leader and the alpha in the room. These guys can look to Carson for tips on what they should do to get open or where they should be at on a route or, where they should stop and turn around and look for the ball. So I think it gives Carson more of a sense of control and confidence in even just being able to lead these guys. It's hard to walk in a room with a guy like Alshon or Deshaun that's been in the league for 10 years and you want to tell them, no, do this. You know what I mean? It's hard to do that. It is.
Exactly.
And, Carson isn't, some guy that's going to, get in somebody's face and curse them out. He's going to take accountability for mostly everything. That's just the type of guy he is. So I think that works better with younger guys that don't yet have their egos built, even their confidence built yet. He can help them build that confidence, and now that there's that mutual confidence between each other. So I think that's a great point. This kind of segues into our awards segment, and we can go through these pretty quick. Just give so a little bit of stuff behind. It's getting a little lengthy, but we're going in depth. So I'm not mad at all. So yeah. First, I guess what I'll ask first, because I declared the season disappointing so far. So who's your most disappointing player? And I think it's fairly obvious who it should be, but there's a couple that I have listed here, though.
To me, I have the whole offense disappointing because to me, the teams you played early in the season and the amount of points that you put up and the missed opportunities that you had.
Yeah,
I feel like it's the whole offensive, and you can lump in the coaching staff too and the play calling. You can lump it all into one. That's the most disappointing because I thought this offense was going to be able to take that next step and be able to score you 30, 35 points and be able to, especially against bad teams. And they weren't able to do that.
I thought they built their identity at the end of that season last year. I thought there was something forming there, and
exactly.
We come out and we look like lost, children at the mall again. So I just, I don't get it. I think a lot of it is Doug, I think. And then obviously a lot of it is, inexperience between the receivers. Guys like Breger have been beat up all season. They haven't got to build that chemistry. So I mean, most disappointing, I had put literally Carson, Miles, and Ertz. So basically, the three keys on offense. Obviously, the offensive lines have been beat up, so I didn't want to lump them in there. I don't think they're disappointed. I think they've just been, beat the hell up. But, Carson, for obvious reasons, he's been disappointed. I think he's just been the most disappointing because we know where he can be. We know the way he can play. So that's why he's on there. Miles, health. Literally, it's just health. I want him to get healthy. That's the only thing that's been disappointing is the injuries. That are just lingering and the fatigue or whatever. And then Ertz, for obvious reasons, he's just looked out of it. And coming into the season, and I hate to say that because he's still one of my favorite players all time. But really fell out of my favor this season. Like the body language that he's given off.
Lackadaisical.
It's just I'm disappointed by him to say the least. Not even dealing with injuries before the injuries. It was just not Zach Ertz, not the Ertz I know. I know everybody says he doesn't break tackles. He never has. That's never been his thing. So it's not really what it's about. I'm going to give you my MVP, and you're going to think this is funny, but I actually think it's Carson Wentz again. As weird as that is, and I think that's where this team is, to where their MVP is the most disappointing player on the team. While and there's a couple guys you could give it to. I was honestly considering Brandon Graham.
That's who I had.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So then we're on the same page there. I was considering him. I just look at what Wentz has been able to do at the end of games and really put the team on his shoulders. And games like the Ravens, it started in the Cincinnati game where he really turned it on. In the second half. Through the Steelers game and then, whatever. But even against the Giants, he led an 11-point comeback. Even against the Cowboys, he led a comeback. So I do have Wentz there. But that also comes from, just if your quarterback's not playing well, then obviously a lot of the other guys aren't going to be playing well. So it's hard to pick at that point. But you had Brandon Graham.
Yeah, I had Brandon Graham. 7 sacks. He's third in the league. I know Myles Garrett and Aaron Donald are ahead of him. He has 9 tackles for loss, which is more than Myles Garrett. I think it's on par with Donald. I think Donald may have one more or something like that. I'm not sure.
Amen.
But he's just playing at an outstanding level. And it's just he's been doing that. Yeah, he's not been getting the sack numbers. But if you look at what he's been doing the last couple of seasons, last 4 or 5 years, he's been on that level. And early in the season, when you did your exactly, and when you did your predictions, and you asked me who my one bold prediction or whatever, and I said Brandon Graham's going to have 10 sacks. He's going to be a Pro Bowler this year. He's never had 10 sacks in a season in his career. And yes, he's 32 or 31, going on 32 years old, but it just seems like he's getting better with age. I don't know. They may be keeping him fresher, which is fine, but it's just he's showing you, early in his career, there was a bunch of why not? Oh, it should have been Earl Thomas. Well, Earl Thomas can't find a team. Nobody wants him. He's an issue because his brother comes to town wherever he goes. But no, Brandon Graham has just showed you everything, and he's given you everything. Yeah. He puts it all out on the field.
Yeah.
I think it was the playoff game last year where he got hurt. And I don't know if it was like his quad or something. He was holding it. And I'm like, oh, man, he's going to be out. Man, it's just – and then he was back in the game. Yeah. Even though he was hurt. When the year that he was going to be a free agent, and I know he was going over Derek Gunn. He gave Derek Gunn a hug, and he was just really emotional because he thought it was going to be his last year, as a member of the Eagles. Mm-hmm. He is a Philadelphia Eagle. He's the epitome of what that means and what that is, because the effort and what he brings it every single snap.
That energy as well.
Exactly. And he's that leader on defense. I know Fletcher Cox is the bigger name because of his stature and everything, but I feel like Brandon Graham is that leader on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. And, the funniest thing about that year that you're talking about is contract year. Everybody was saying, no, don't give him, don't sign him back. He's washed. He's on his way out. He was like 29, going on, 28, 29 years old. So, I mean, just goes to show you how irrational Eagles fans can be sometimes. Because Brandon Graham, like to your point, is having, his best season of his career. So, I mean, which that goes to the next one. We can already, chalk that up, the Defensive Player of the Year. I'm sure we agree on that. Brandon Graham.
Yeah, the whole defensive line is 28 sacks. You know, they're pressuring. They're so deep. Josh Sweat is playing out of his mind. He's playing better than Jadeveon Clowney, which a lot of people wanted when he was a free agent. So Sweat's playing great. Sweat's basically playing for a starting job next year because it looks like Derek Barnett may not be able to be a starter because they may not keep him under that $10 million. But, you know, Cox Hargrave, Malik Jackson, yes, Vinny Curry is getting some rotation in there. You know, to me, the defensive line is just playing outstanding, and you need them to play outstanding. That's what we thought in the beginning of the year. They were going to be that, you know, disruptive.
You have to make up for the linebackers. So
exactly, who have not been playing that bad right now. It's not Nate Garrett
and Edwards. I like those guys.
Yeah.
So the next one, man, I actually, and we can skip this one if you want. I was going to do like Rookie of the Year. It's hard to say, you know, it's like limited participants. So it's really hard to even pick, Jalen Reagor's been beat up. Hightower's had big drops. Kayvon Wallace has played sparingly, at the safety position. Sean Bradley's been in there a little bit. There's, am I missing somebody? I nothing really is standing out to me from the rookie class as of yet.
No, there really is. Like, for me, like, defensive side of the ball, it's incomplete. You don't know what you have with Wallace. Davion Taylor doesn't really play, but special teams. And Bradley doesn't really play as much as well. The only really you can give on the offensive side of the ball is between Reagor and Hightower. And they really haven't, showed you that much. Hightower's had a couple nice deep catches. Reagor has only played in 3 games. So I would say the Rookie of the Year is almost incomplete right now.
Yeah.
You really don't know. Maybe at the end of the year you can have a more definitive answer, but as of right now, I would probably, chalk that up as a good old incomplete.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, man. Because I got to that part because I had written it down. I was like, no. Because I could give it to Hightower. He just had some huge drops that I don't feel proper giving him any type of awards. Yeah. So I did have a most improved here, and I wanted to separate that from the biggest surprise because, biggest surprise for me, obviously, and I'm sure you might be there too, Travis Fulgham. I mean,
I figured you would go that way, so I went Mailata.
Oh, okay, so we can lump those together. I had the most improved. I had Jordan Mailata there, but that is more of a I guess that is a surprise. But then I also had Josh Sweat there as well. Those three of those guys, young guys, have really, really impressed me, and that's kind of what I was getting at with those 2 awards. But those 3 guys have been super impressive, so early in their career.
Yeah.
So this was an interesting one too. Your biggest worry going forward.
My biggest worry that I wrote down, first thing that popped in my head when I was, coaches play the veterans instead of the young players, who are thriving. So basically JP at left tackle, Alshon over Fulgham, playing these guys over, the young guys who are showing in, and not saying it's like, it's different if you say Malu for Herbig or something like that, because it's different. It's a step up. And Malu's younger. But to go in and put a player who's 38 years old or another player who had Liz Frank injury and he's 30, 31, 32.
And you're talking about guys that won't be on the team next year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest worry is that they do that and stunt the growth of the young guys.
Yeah. So I guess, I definitely agree with you there. I was thinking Carson, but I'm not actually too worried about Carson. I think as the line gets, starts to play together consistently, I think that'll give him I think Carson's going to be fine. He'll shut the haters up by the end of the season, in my opinion. My biggest worry, I guess, is Miles Sanders. Just what he brings to the team, the running game. I think, when he's out, it takes Doug's confidence in the running game away. I mean, Boston Scott was running really well against the Cowboys, and he played well against the Giants as well. Two teams that aren't great at stopping the run, and it's definitely something we could have just, rode out in those games.
Yeah.
But, Doug, and I get it, because Doug's sitting here looking, he's like, well, do I want to give, Boston Scott 20 carries? Do I want to have Corey Clement running the ball 5 to 10 times? Probably not. So that's my biggest worry is, I guess, not maybe Miles Sanders, but just what he brings to the offense and the different dynamics and how stagnant it makes, how bad the running game gets when he's out.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big piece as to what Carson can be successful with in the second half is, like you said earlier, the run game and just relying on it. And I think that feeds into the defense as well, man, because, a lot of our possessions are quick 3-and-outs. And that defense is right on the field, or it's a turnover, and they're on their own. They're in their own territory. So running the ball, I mean, and this goes back to this is beginning of football. These are the foundational rules.
Yeah,
running the football in defense. I mean, there's nothing wrong with relying on it. So I just think that's a monumental piece moving forward when they failed to address the backup running back.
Exactly. And the big thing is 2003, Donovan struggled mightily. That's when they started 0-2. They started off, not playing well. What did they go? And they went on a big run of wins. They focused on the three-headed monster. It was Westbrook, it was Deuce, and it was Buckhalter.
Yep.
And they relied on the defense. Now, of course, defense was so much better than it is now.
Right.
I'm not going to say it's the same, but, they focused on the running game, and then they used Donovan here and there to do what he had to do with, what he had, but you focus on the running game.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you look at the success, the 49ers ran the shit out of the ball last season. You know what I mean? Like that's why they were in the Super Bowl. They had a great defense and they ran 2017, we ran the ball really well. I mean, we had three running backs that were, legit out on the field making plays. And, you just look at this season and it's headed down the wrong road. You saw it last season. Once Doug fell in love with the run, things started going well last season. So the writing's on the wall. I feel like it's as obvious as day, but maybe they just don't feel they have the personnel to do it, between the offensive line and the running backs. But that's why I think that makes, Miles Sanders an even bigger, important, more important piece going forward.
Yeah.
So we'll dig into the final segment. It's just going to be, basically our predictions on how the rest of this season's playing out. I actually gave mine last night on it's called the Birds Breakdown, but I was on there with Al Parcero and the Philly Sports Guy, and we kind of just went through the teams. But I definitely want to get it out to my viewers right now, and definitely want to get your perspective on it as well. So we'll just go down the line of the games. We can talk about the teams we're playing, and we'll go from there. So obviously the first game this weekend, we're going against the New York Giants, and that is over in the Meadowlands in New Jersey, not New York. So
the Jersey Giants.
Yeah, the Jersey Giants. I think it's a win. It's kind of the same way I felt about the game against the Cowboys. I felt like we should have blown the Cowboys out, and why we didn't doesn't make sense. I feel like we should blow the Giants out, but we won't. I think it's a division game. They'll play us tough, and the Giants have played tough this season. They're not a pushover team. So, and that's the funny thing about the NFC East is that maybe the Cowboys right now, but even the Washington football team is not a pushover.
No, they're not.
For us to be getting, made fun of. So I think that's actually pretty funny. But I have a W against the Giants. It's pretty straightforward. I think, we get Miles back. We already got Goddard and Rager back. Hopefully, I don't know what type of timetable Lane Johnson's on. But you got, Jason Peters back. You get Isaac back. So that's good for the offensive line. it's a game we have to win. We need to win that. It's pretty much a must win when you look at the rest of the schedule.
Exactly. And I think it's going to be a close game. One score game. Unfortunately, it's not going to be a blowout.
Yeah.
It very well could be, but
It could be.
I think the Eagles they'll come away with a win. It may not be super, super pretty, but I feel like with the bye week and everything, I think it's not going to be as letting them hang in the game. It may be close at the end because the Giants score a late touchdown or something like that. But as I said, it's not going to be a blowout. But I think the Eagles, they'll start out quick, and I feel like they'll hold the lead, and the Giants may score late and may make it a tiny bit closer. But I feel the Eagles, they'll win the game.
Yeah, and that's just one of those games. In the first game, if Carson doesn't turn the ball over, as much as he did, we probably, maybe not blow him out, but we beat him. I don't know. We were down by 11 points going into the fourth quarter, so I can't even say that. So, whatever. Yeah. It's a division game. It's always going to be tough, and the Giants, aren't any pushovers. I think the only way that we could get, maybe a double-digit victory against the Giants is if our defense really shows up energized and ready to go and just really completely, kind of shuts them out. We'll see. They're coming off a bye week. There's a chance they could really come out with a lot of energy. Got the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland. This game is interesting. I think it's very interesting. I don't think the Browns are a bad team. I think they're probably right there in the middle of the pack as far as NFL teams. I think they do things really well, like run the football. Their defense is, it's solid. I would say nothing, it's not breaking any records or anything, but solid. And then obviously, they lost OBJ. Baker Mayfield's another one of those, inconsistent quarterbacks. He has his moments though. I think it matches up really well for the Eagles. I think them being a run-heavy team bodes well for the Eagles. And then, obviously, Baker Mayfield, he's good for a turnover or two if you get some pressure on him. I think that's it's going to be a tough game, but I think it's a game that we should win and, maybe even, finally gain some respect back, by beating a Browns team just when you're supposed to. So, I'm calling that a W just because, again, I think that's one that we need to win out of the games that are left.
Yeah, the Browns game, it's going to be a tough game. They're probably going to have Nick Chubb back. They're starting running back. So
and Kareem Hunt.
Exactly. So they're going to have their run game. But, losing OBJ is going to be tough. Is tough for them. Their defense still is good. I think it's going to be a tough game. Right now, as it stands, the way Baker's playing up and down, not having OBJ, if you're able to stop that run game, I feel like you could put enough points on the board to beat them. It's just they're a hard team to read. They'll look great against like a Dallas, and then they look awful against the Raiders. So
right,
I think it's going to be a close game. I think the Eagles. I chalk that one up as a W right now with the way it looks with everything, how it stands right now. I would say a W.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think it's going to be one of those nitty gritty games where we're going to have to get a little dirty, and I think that's just how Cleveland plays, though. And what you can say about the Browns is at least they have an identity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So. That's one thing they got going for them. So then following that, so we got two W's so far. Following that, we got Seattle at home. We talked about them earlier a bit. Obviously they're not unbeatable, but it is one of those games where I'm, kind of siding with the history as well as, just playing against Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf and, the plethora of weapons they have out there. The high-powered offense. I just don't think we're built to go into a shootout. And I think that's what you would have to beat the Seahawks in is a shootout. And even though it's in Philly, I don't see it this year. I I feel like it would be reckless of me to pick the Eagles over the Seahawks. I guess I should put it that way.
Yeah, as everything is right now, like I said, they're not built to be a shootout team. They're not. They're showing you they're not built for it because they're not putting up the amount of points. But right now, with the way history is, they've never beaten Pete Carroll or Russell Wilson. So unfortunately, you'd kind of chalk that one up as a loss.
Yeah.
Especially
season.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd say that one would be a loss.
Yeah, because I mean, even our Super Bowl year, Seattle beat us, right? Or was that the
we had Sunday Night Football. That was the one where Carson rolled out and threw like he was almost as he threw it to Aguilar.
Yeah,
and he actually caught the ball.
Right, we still lost that game, even in the Super Bowl team.
Yeah.
So then the next game we got away game at the Lambeau Field against the Packers. Aaron Rodgers. I guess I'll put it this way. We can kind of maybe just combine the two games together, I guess. I think we're going to win one of the two against either New Orleans or the Packers. I think we're going to be one of those teams.
I agree with you there.
I think we're going to – if I had to put it in stone right now, I would say that we would lose to the Packers. And that's just because we beat Aaron Rodgers last year, so I think he's due for a win against the Eagles. He's such a great quarterback, but I definitely think we can beat them. Like you said, they have one of the worst, if not the worst, rushing defense in the league. So if we have Miles at full strength, and have our run game going, then we could beat the Packers in Lambeau.
No crowd there either.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a huge difference. And then I would have us beating the Saints in response to that. For the same reasoning, I think we're due to beat the Saints, and I think this year they have looked as weak as they have looked in past years, or in recent years, I should say. Going into the last couple of seasons, they were expected to be playoff powerhouses, and they sort of floundered out in the playoffs. But as far as their status during the regular season, they were looking, legit contenders, elite.
The one thing,
I don't think so, and they are outdoors.
Yeah, and the thing is, that's the one thing. If you look at that game you're playing later in the season, if it's super windy
and cold,
is Drew Brees going to be able to throw the ball? His arm has looked very weak this year. I know he's dealing with a shoulder, and he's had shoulder trouble this year as well. So that's something. They have a bunch of wrinkles to their offense, but you're right. I feel like it's either Green Bay or New Orleans. I think they can come away with one of those games.
Yeah. Which one would you go with?
I would go with New Orleans right now because I just feel like, to me, I don't know. I know the Green Bay with their defense and everything, but I don't think New Orleans' defense is some great defense.
Yeah.
So I think it's like I said, you could pick either or. I would go New Orleans just because I feel like they're due. They've beaten us at their home the last couple of seasons.
Yeah.
Maybe return to favor when you're at home. So that's what I would kind of go with.
Finally. So then the next game would be in Arizona against Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. This one is one I think we could win, but I do have us losing. Yeah. That offense is explosive. You can kind of dig into that, but I do have us losing that game.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, I don't know, just something Eagles going to Arizona just doesn't sit right with me. And it goes all the way back when they lost the NFC Championship.
Yeah, that's what I immediately thought of. Larry Fitzgerald, Jesus.
The last, I'm not sure. I think every time they've been, the last few seasons, they've gone to Arizona. When they played in Arizona, I think they've lost. And I don't know if it's really been that close. There's been a number of games that just didn't go well. Yeah, if they lost, I remember 2011 or 2012 when they lost to John Skelton at home. And then the Super Bowl year, they beat them because they weren't very good. But otherwise, I don't know. I just don't have a good feeling in Arizona. If it was at home, I think it'd be a little bit different. But in Arizona, I don't know, containing Kyler Murray.
Yeah, that's what I was going to kind of get at is, the Kyler Murrays of the world, the Russell Wilsons of the world. I hate the way they match up against the Eagles. And, the scary thing I guess I would say about Kyler Murray is that, we watched Lamar Jackson go for over 100 rushing yards against us. Understandable, that's who Lamar is. And then the following, maybe not the following week, we played the Steelers, but the week after that, we see Daniel Jones, break off for the 80-yard run where he trips and falls on his face. But, that is kind of what I'm thinking about is, Kyler Murray getting loose out of the pocket. Yeah. He's willing to run, whereas Russell Wilson usually tries to look for the pass more, rather than taking off later in his career. But Kyler Murray, he's up there with, the running ability of nobody is Lamar Jackson, but his quickness, his speed, and his vision is up there. He's a very good running quarterback, and he probably has a better touch than Lamar Jackson. He's probably going to make some better throws. So when you mix those two things together, I think that's a bad recipe on top of, DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, Isabella, Kenyon Drake, if he's back by then, and then Chase Edmonds has not he hasn't missed a beat since Drake went out. So their explosive offense is another one of those games, where it could turn into a shootout type of thing, and that's not what you want to do if you're the Eagles at this point. So, I'm with you there. Then we finish out with Dallas and Washington. And these games are semi-interesting because, somebody pointed out to me last night that, if we beat Dallas and if we grab, maybe a game against the Saints, if we grab the Browns in the Giants game, maybe grab a game against, either Arizona or the Packers or something. You know what I mean? Then maybe you don't need to win that last game against Washington. Now, I sort of beg to differ just because Washington has beat us. So as of right now, I would say that we probably will need to win that game. And I think we will. But it's just interesting in that aspect. If we didn't need that game by there, I don't think we're going to be in a position to where we can – rest starters or some shit.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, wouldn't it be weird if, going into the last two games, we've already wrapped up the division. That's how bad it is, which,
it's possible.
It is very possible because if we steal a game from the Saints and we win those first two games and we're right up, we're 6-7-1 going in there, and who knows if Dallas is 4-10 at that point and Washington is same, it's just you don't know. I'm not saying you rest your starters or anything like that, but it's the weird season that you could. Like I said, I have them winning the last two games because I'm finishing 8-7-1.
Same, I'm right there.
I just feel at that point if they're healthy, and I feel like they'll be at a point where they're going to match up a lot better with Dallas and with Washington. So I feel like it bodes well for them that I feel like they'll get those last two games. I haven't finished in 8-7-1. So going into the playoffs, winning the division, going into the playoffs.
Yep. And with the Dallas and Washington, I think, they could be tough, especially against Washington. That's a tough matchup at this point for us. Their defense is legit, and they do have, weapons. Alex Smith's probably a better passer than Dwayne Haskins. Yeah. So even if he's checking down every play, I mean, you got Gibson back there, so you got options. Even McKissick. So I have him at 8-7-1. Now, like I said earlier, it's kind of like what we talked about. Once you get into the playoffs, it's any given Sunday at that point. If we're playing a team again, like the Bears, or if a team like Carolina sneaks in there somehow, any of those teams, obviously I wouldn't want to play, like Seattle or New Orleans first round or anything. And we shouldn't at the 4 seed. So I think I don't want to guarantee a playoff win, but I don't know. I would feel really awkward if we went to the playoffs and, didn't at least compete and maybe win a playoff game. I wouldn't be disappointed. I would just feel a little awkward because I think they can.
Well, my big thing is if they go into the playoffs and Carson gets his playoff win, it gets that monkey off his back of people saying, well, you still haven't won a playoff game. But, I think they can go in and they can win a playoff game, especially if it's at home. I understand they're not going to be a full crowd, but if there's some fans, a little bit of noise, it still gets the players juiced up, and it's the playoffs still. So if they match up well, it all depends on how they finish the season. If they're rolling, you never know. And that's the biggest thing I'll say is you just never know. So if they're rolling and they're playing well and Carson's playing well, the offense is rolling, they're playing good football, they could go in and they could win a playoff game. Yeah. I'm not saying they're going to go and win it all, but they could surely win a playoff game going to the next round.
Yeah.
I could definitely see that.
And once and it's like you said, once you get there, if we're on a hot streak, say we do go into the playoffs beating, the Saints, Arizona, Dallas, and Washington. Knock on wood, let's say we do, we're hot. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's the last team you want to play in the NFL. I mean, it's the last team you want to play is an experienced Doug Peterson, a Carson Wentz with a chip on his shoulder, and a bunch of young guys just out there trying to prove themselves. And even, the older guys that still want to prove that they're worth something, guys like Alshon, Ertz. And, once you get past that first playoff win, then you already know Eagles fans are riding, and we're believing at that point. You know what I mean? So, and then we've seen teams like the Saints and, or the Seahawks blow games in the first or, their first playoff games. So, any given Sunday is the way I put it. If we can just squeak in, and, keys going forward is simply health. If they can just keep building their getting their players back and staying healthy, not losing guys again, we have a chance. And that's all I can ask for at this point in the season is a chance. So,
and that's my thing is, being healthy, but also keep developing the youth.
Yeah.
The Mailatas, the Fulghams, even Miles Sanders, Zach Goddard, Nate Herbig, Josh Sweat, Avonte Maddox, they're still young guys. Kayvon Wallace. Develop these guys. And I'm going to throw out a bold prediction. And I've kind of thought about it, but come December, they're in that playoff hunt and everything. Don't be surprised to see Brandon Brooks back. I know it's crazy. It's crazy to think about.
You're right, man.
it's super crazy to think about. But remember, they didn't put him on IR. They put him on the PUP list.
Yeah.
Which is very surprising. And he's already doing jumps. He's already doing, 4 or 5 months, off of surgery. So that's my one bold prediction is Brandon Brooks. My hope is he's back, but I just have a weird feeling that he's going to be back come December, towards the end of the season, maybe the last game or whatever, going into the playoffs.
Yeah,
if he's back, you never know.
Yeah, I mean he's a freak athlete, and it's ridiculous, for how big he is. But hopefully, and that would, oh my goodness, what that would do for, not just talent-wise on the offensive line, but confidence. Lane Johnson and Jason Kelsey, Lane's looking to his left and Kelsey's looking to his right, and they see Brandon Brooks there.
Yeah.
The confidence that gives you, because Kelsey looking at, maybe a Nate Herbig or, another rookie over there, Jack Driscoll, whatever the case may be. He's looking over there. He's like, man, I'm going to have to help this guy out. You know what I mean? So that type of feeling, just having – because you do have to have your teammates back. So just taking that weight off their shoulder because Brandon Brooks can hold his own.
But the energy honestly, that's going to bring.
Yeah, I don't care if he's coming off of an injury. I still believe in Brandon Brooks up until he gets injured again.
I agree with you.
Yeah, so not all disappointing and bad for the Eagles. We do have some hopeful things.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not the season that we, envisioned. I mean,
but neither is 2020.
Yes, correct. The funny thing is, I remember doing the All About the Birds, preseason show, and we all had them around 9-7 or maybe 10-6.
10-6, yeah.
They're still getting to around that mark, but it feels a whole lot different than what I expected.
A different route.
Yeah. So, get into the playoffs. You got a chance. We do have, positives going forward. Like you said, keep the youth movement going. You don't. I do not want to see Alshon in there for Fulgham. I don't want.
No, I agree with you.
I really don't. It's gonna piss me off. But keep the youth movement, stay healthy, and get Carson back on track, and get Miles back and get that running game going. Hopefully, Doug can pick his head up off the floor, pick his ass up. Whatever the saying is, get it together, get the shit together.
Doug needs to start eating some mint chocolate chip ice cream and not vanilla.
Right, he needs to get the ice cream flowing, man. He's got to put that vanilla down, bro. But that's where we'll leave it off. I'll go ahead and shout you out again. Thank you, Johnny Ulecka, for coming on the show.
Anytime.
Guys, I forgot to mention it at the beginning of the show, but keep an eye out for my man's hype videos because they're insane. They're insane.
I got a Giants one coming too this week. Be ready.
So go ahead, throw All About the Birds a follow on Instagram and Twitter, Facebook as well. Make sure to go like the page on there. Go ahead and give them a follow at AAT Birds. You can also give Johnny a follow on Twitter as well if you want to dive into some of his takes. He's putting articles out. If you want to go ahead and give him your Twitter handle there.
It's at JohnnyU9322.
There we go. And go ahead and give my man Johnny a follow. He's always bringing the craziest stats and the craziest hype videos. As you guys heard earlier, he went out and dug up all the research on quarterbacks that you could compare, going through the same type of stretch as Carson Wentz. Definitely be sure to go and check out that article on allaboutthebirds.com. As always, be sure to like and subscribe to the Scotty Talks Philly Sports Podcast. And be sure to give me a follow on Twitter at STPhillySports1 is the sports page, and Scotty Drowned is the personal page. Once again, Johnny, thank you very much for coming on the show. We got some very good in-depth analysis.
Anytime.
Might have to split this into 2 episodes. We'll see.
It's fine with me.
Hey, man, thank you for coming on, Johnny. Always appreciate it. Shout out to All About the Birds. And go Birds!
Go Birds!
There we go.